So welcome to session 3 of data science, and we just finished the quiz. And anyone can recap what happened last week, what we learned from last session.
I think we learned about correlation, causation,
Regression.
Regression.
Yeah.
Yes. And did you all try to complete the homework? How was the homework?
It wasn't that hard.
It's not that hard, right? So you just need to plot the scatter diagram, and you will apply this equation. And you may have like two sets of answer, because when you're rounding it, see the y, you're rounding it. When you're rounding it, you will get a different answer. When you're just using the raw data, you will get a different answer. And what do you think? Like, you're expecting the gold price is going to be 1300, but now the gold price is the euro dollar, it is showing like 1500. Why do you think that the price is going to be like, it is when you're forecasting it is less? So what do you think about the data? What did you infer from the data?
The data is mostly unpredictable because a gold is something that like constantly changes in different countries because of their availability and everything.
That's right. And the other thing is, if you look at that we are seeing some outliers. See here that if you look at the graph, the prices are like really constant over here, but there is a high jump. Look at that. This area, there is really a big jump. So that is why your data is maybe like speed, or it is whatever you're predicted is less than what the price is now. And as you mentioned, the gold price is determined by various factors, right? The supply, demand, any other condition. Stock market will also impact the gold price. When the stock prices are going up, the gold market will go down. And when the stock market is going down, we will be always investing in gold, right? So a lot of factors are there. So this is just one factor. What we analyzed in last week is just one factor, but there are a lot of factors. So how do we calculate? So here you got the regression equation, right? Y is equal to, when you plot the scatter diagram, you will find this equation, and you're going to substitute the x value for the year. So when you substitute the x value for the year, you will get the gold price. You can predict the gold price for 2030. So any questions on this one? It is pretty easy, right? When you are using some tools, it is very easy to do all this analysis rather than you are working on hand. So this week we are going in a different format. Usually we will look into the quiz at the end, right? But now we are going to look into the quiz now. Okay. The reason why we are going to look into the quiz now is because this is the basic understanding of Python. You need to know all the basics before we jump into the Numpy. Okay, so let's start with this one. First question. What is the answer for the first question?
Is the answer for the first
D.
question hashtag?
Hashtag, yes, G. Yeah, that's right. You're right. So any comment, we can just use the hashtag. What is the second? What is the answer for the second question? Yes, B. Okay, why?
To name the variable, you have
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, name of the variable cannot be a numeric. It cannot start with a number. So that's why B is the answer. And how about number 3?
I think it's B.
It's B, because a variable cannot start with a number. Variable name cannot start with number. It can start, you can start with a new like alpha character, or you can start with underscore, but it cannot start with a number. So B is the right answer. Okay, tuples. So what's the answer? Okay, yeah, that's right. So what is tuple? Yes, I'm seeing Darren is typing the, yeah, A and B. So the tuples are, it is kind of a list, but it is within the parentheses, and they are not mutable. That means you cannot change. Once you create the tuple, you cannot change it. And the reason why I'm asking about tuples is we are going to use that in Numpy. That's why, okay? So tuples are immutable. That means they are not changeable, and the tuples are yeah, tuples, if you look at that, see in the chat, Darren said this is how you write the tuple. Can you see this chat? A comma B within the parentheses. Yes, this is based, yes, this is a continuation of the last semester. Yes. And if you don't have the Python basics, I highly recommend you to take some like time and learn the Python before coming to this class, because you may be lost if you don't know the basics of Python. Okay. Next one. Fifth question. Do you need to have an import statement? Yes, Darren, you're right. So we need to have an import statement. We need to import any library in order to use it in Python. Without importing, you will not be able to use it. So the import is an important function, like you need to import it, imports any libraries. And number 6 is from last week's class. Okay, answer for number 6. It is D. Yes, it is D. So it is between +1 and -1. I think someone is asking for question 4. Question 4, yeah, Python are immutable. Yes, A is the right answer. Exactly. They are immutable. Tuples are immutable. So number 6 is done. Number 7. Okay, number 7.
It's an element.
It's an element. That's right. Any item, individual item in a list is an element. Yes. Number 8.
It's C.
It's C. Yes. So this is C. If you look at that, this is an important key part that we are going to learn today. The first index is always 0. Okay, so just keep that in your mind when we are working on the Numpy array and in list. The first index is always 0. What about the last index? Number 9.
The size of the list -1.
Yeah, the size of the list -1. Yeah, you're right. That's right. What about number 10?
It's a class.
It's a class, yeah. But tuples, list, and dictionary are the core data type, whereas class is not a core data type. So are you good with the quiz? Can we move to our today's session?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yes.
So this is based on last semester?
Yes, exactly. This is based on last semester. If you like, at least you need to know the basics of the Python. If you don't know basics of the Python, take time. You can learn from W3 schools, or you can even go to our last session's videos. You can learn from there, because that Python basic is necessary to understand the libraries that we are going to use for this semester. If you don't have the Python basic, it will be little, you can catch up, but it will take little time.
Okay.
So any other questions?
Also, will we be using files during this semester?
Yeah, we'll be using files. We'll be using CSV files, and we'll be importing it. And yes, we'll be using it. But
Okay.
not for this, not for today's session though.
Yeah,
Today's
yeah.
session, we are not going to use the files,
Yeah.
but we'll be using files, and we'll be um, importing data from the files and do data analysis, but not for today's class.
But
So good, all good. Shall we move?
yeah.
Okay, okay. Today we are going to talk about Numpy. We are going to talk about how you are going to create arrays, what are the standards and what are the data types, and probably I'm not sure we will be able to cover the universal functions today, but I think we'll be able to work on until this Numpy arrays. So when you go to the library, what you will do? Let's say you're going to a library, you want to get a book.
I'll go to
What
the
you will do?
library and check out a book to read.
Can you repeat it?
I would go to the library and check out a book.
Yeah, you will check out the book. Exactly. Then if you want to access, if you want to take the book home, you will be checking out the book. So here for Python, we have a lot of libraries. The libraries were created by third party, and it is an open source. And in order to use any libraries, we will be using the import function. Okay? So why we are going to use Numpy? What is the reason to use Numpy? Numpy is really a faster program. Numpy stands for numerical Python. See, numerical Python, and it is the scientific library, and it is the base for many other libraries. And this library provides support for the multi-dimensional array objects, and we can do a lot of analysis with them. And Numpy is based on the matrices. So, and based on, do you have you learned about matrices in your math class?
No.
No.
Okay, so I think we may need to brush up some matrices skills, and maybe for the homework I can assign that. So now matrices are you need to learn matrices concept in order to understand the Numpy features. So maybe we will talk about it later about matrices. So this is about Numpy, and we are going to talk about the Numpy ecosystem. What is an ecosystem?
It's like a relationship between each and every living each and everything in a particular area.
Okay, can you give an example?
For example, an ecosystem can be considered as maybe like you can take like a pond. Like a pond
Yes.
would be a great example of an ecosystem because
Mhm.
it's you can clearly like see the relationship between each of the animals inside of it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's the ecosystem for Numpy, like Python ecosystem. It starts with Numpy, and Numpy is the basic for many more libraries. So based on the Numpy, they build the SciPy, Pandas, Matplotlib. All these libraries are based on Numpy. So the thorough understanding of Numpy is critical in order to use the other libraries.
I have
That's
a
why
question.
yeah, go ahead.
So are all these other libraries considered like subclasses of the NumPy, or are they different?
It's not a subclass, but what they do is they take the Numpy and they build upon it. So, for example, Pandas, it is built on Numpy, and it has more features than Numpy. You can have like the data frame is more powerful, and it will support more data type. So the basic will be Numpy, and they will be building more based on the Numpy.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why we are going to start with Numpy. And for this semester, we'll be talking about Numpy, SciPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and probably the CBOM, that is the another library. So we'll be learning about those. There are multiple libraries. We are not going to do everything. We are just going to start with just the basic ones. And for each and every industry, you have a specific kind of library. For example, if you're going to work on DNA analysis for biology, you will have a different type of library. And if you're going to, for the stock market, if you're going to analyze the stock market, you will have a specific library for that. So some libraries are based on the specific industry. Some libraries are for data visualization, data analysis, data cleaning, and data interpretation. So a lot of the libraries are using the Numpy basics. So that's why we are going to learn about Numpy. Any questions?
So basically, the NumPy ecosystem is just different libraries of the Python language.
No, it's Numpy is the basic, but you have multiple libraries. So, like you have alphabets, and you're using the alphabets to create the letters and stuff, right? Words and sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So Numpy, they are using Numpy to create their own libraries.
Oh, so it's kind of like a family tree, kind of,
Yes,
right?
kind of. Yeah, we can say that. Yeah, we can say that.
Okay,
And
thank you.
yeah, other thing we want to tell you is Numpy. It is based on the. It is built using the C++ and C language. And they are using Python, C++, C in order to create this library, and it is an open source. Okay. Then we talked about Numpy, then we are going to talk about the matrices. Because you
I
need
have
to
a question about the
Yes, go ahead.
last slide. So if they're written using different languages than Python, how can we use it in Python?
It is an open source. It is they use different languages to make it faster. C++, C. They use C++ and C to write this Numpy along with Python, and it is available in Python to use. That's why you're importing it.
Oh, okay.
It is not part of the Python, right? You're going to import Numpy in order to use it. You're going to check out from the library.
So like they created some functionality that lets us use it with Python?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
So
okay.
you're not going to recreate the wheel. They already created the wheel. What you're going to do is you're going to use for your own function. You're going to borrow that and you're going to use it for your own.
Okay.
And it is open source. It is available to everyone. So that is the beauty of Python. So all the libraries are mostly open source, and you can check it, import it, and you can start using it. Any questions? I think that this Plotly is used for the data visualization. If you want, you can learn it. But for this course, we'll be using Numpy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Lib, and SciPy. Probably we may use this one, but not. I think Plotly is part of the Matplotlib, I believe. We'll go through next class. Okay. Any questions on this ecosystem? Can we move further? Now we are going to talk about the matrices. Okay. When you have just one value, just called a scalar. See, there is only one row and one columns, right? There is nothing more than that. It is just one. So this is called a scalar. The first one is the scalar, and the second one is the vector. you have rows and only one column. So this is vector and this is the matrix. So you'll have multiple values, that is matrix. And this is kind of a three-dimensional, it is tensor. So these are the things that we are going to learn and we are going to create these. These are called, we will be using arrays to create, NP arrays to create these. So let's go detail. So when array is a collection of elements that can have one or more dimensions. So you can have multiple dimensions. So it's a collection of elements. Can you give me an example for collection of elements?
List.
Okay, list. Yeah, give me an example for a list.
Tuple is one, and then there's also a dictionary.
Those are the data types, right? I want to give get an example. Yeah, Darren typed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a list of numbers, or let's say list of students in the class, or it is the list of weekdays like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So something, it's a collection of elements. Array is a collection of elements of values. Okay? It may have one or more dimension. So when an array is one dimension, we are calling it as a vector. While it is when we have two dimension, it is called a matrix.
What's the difference between when you put it like
One dimension and two dimension?
Yeah.
So one dimension is like you will have just one set of values. Let's say you're going to just whatever we use it here. See, if I'm having just these numbers, it is going to be just vector. It is just going to be one dimension. If I'm going to have both the values in the matrix, it is going to have two dimension.
Got it.
Okay. So it can be a one dimension, we call it as a vector, and if it is having a two dimension, we call it as a matrix. And in Numpy, we have ND arrays. That means we have n dimensional arrays.
Clarification.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a single dimensional data would just like have like just interpret it using like one, you don't need like a graph. So two dimensional you need like a graph, and then so for Numpy array you need like a third, so you need like X, Y, and Z dimension.
Numpy can handle everything. It can handle one dimension, two dimension, and n dimension.
Got it.
And a graph, you can even create a graph with one dimension, like one set of values, right?
Yeah.
So Numpy is going to support everything. It is going to support a vector, or it is going to support the matrix or the NPy. So if you look at here, the Numpy is going to support the scalar. That scalar is just one number and vector is with one dimension. And this is the two dimension and three, like n dimension. So Numpy is going to support all these. We are going to create these Numpy. We are going to create these arrays and we are going to play with these arrays. But you need to know what are the differences between this. Like scalar is like a 0 dimension, vector is 1 dimension, and the matrix is 2 dimension, and this is the n dimension. So we will be using all these in Numpy. Numpy supports everything. So this is about the arrays, and then we are going to talk about the basic properties. So as I mentioned, arrays can have any number of dimension, including a 0. So why we are calling it as a 0 dimension, this one? Because it has one value, right? Why we are calling it as a 0?
It's not part of the list.
It's part of the list, but the list starts with 0, right? Always it starts with 0, right? That is what we learned in the quiz, right?
Yes.
Yeah, list always start with the 0. The first element of the list is 0, right? So if you have the one element, it is 0. Then you're going to add that based on that. Okay. So the dimension, number of dimension can be 0 or n dimension. And the array can support multiple
Can you
data.
explain that again?
Yes. So if you look at the list, it always starts with 0, right? So let's say I have the list. So we have a list will be always starting with the size of the list, or any list is going to start with 0. So this is 0 is the first element, and this is the second element, and this is the third element, fourth element, and going further. So when we have just one number, let's say I'm just going to have a number 36 or 35 here. This has 0 dimension. That means it has like it is just having one row and one column, right? Nothing else. So we call this as a 0 dimension. Let's say I'm going to add another number 36. So what it is going to do is it is having two rows and one column. So now it has a one dimension. So just with when you have a one row and one column, it is 0 dimension. And when you have multiple rows, it is going to have multiple dimensions. So that's why I want you to learn the matrices. Probably that will be the homework I'm going to assign, to learn more about matrices. That will help you to understand this.
So it doesn't matter if like the number is in a list or not, it would still be a scalar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we will create all those things in the collab. So when you're having hands-on experience, maybe you'll understand better. Just now, just keep note of it that you have scalar vector matrices, that it depends on the dimension we are going to work. So the dimension is number of rows, number of columns. So just keep that one in mind for now. That will help you to understand the Numpy. It may be finding overwhelming now. It may be, you may see it as confusing now, but when you have hands-on, when you're starting working on the code, you'll be able to get it easy. Okay? So it has the number of dimension. Array have a number of dimension, and arrays are like it can support multiple data types. For example, it can like these are the few types that arrays support. And array are dense. That means each element of array exists and has same data type. So we'll be talking about it in detail, like why we are talking about ND array and why it is going to have a same data type. When we are working on the collab, you will be able to see. So these are the array basic properties, and then we are going to talk about Numpy. Numpy arrays are homogeneous. What do you mean by homogeneous?
Like they're the same kind of?
Yeah, same kind, homogeneous. And the Python list, what you studied in last semester, heterogeneous. The Python list, like it can have different data types. You can have a string, or you can have a float or integer in the list. Whereas Numpy arrays, it is going to be homogeneous. It is going to be same data type within the list. And Numpy arrays support more data types, and Numpy arrays are stored in less space. Because it is occupying less space, it is more efficient, and you can do calculations really, really fast rather than the list. So list, it will have multiple data type, whereas the Numpy, you are using same data type, so that makes the storing really efficient, and it has a cascading effect of so third basic property, same type. So it is going to have a same, we're talking about this one. Oh, each element. So each element in the array is going to be same data type. So for example, in the array, see, the chat sheet. This is the array, right? This is an array, and it will have a same data type. It is all integer. If you have an array of float, all the elements will be float. If you have an array of string, all the elements in the array will be string. So the array will store the same data type. Whereas the list, it will have a heterogeneous data type. That means you can store multiple data type within a list. But for array, you can store only one data type. So that is the same data type. That's what I meant by same data type.
Okay.
And so in Numpy, you can do an element-wise operation, and whereas it is not possible with Python list. What is an element?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you said NumPy arrays store less in less space, why does that happen?
Yes, we are going to learn about it. So that's a good question, because that is the basic. That is a basic question you need to ask. Why it is storing in a less space? The reason why is, if you look at that array, let's go to collab. Give me a moment. I'm going to add. So let's say A is a list. A is equal to, let's say, this is the list, right? You can have a list of 1, 2, so this is the list. If you see, this is the list. Okay. So you're going to talk about that. So it is the list. If you look at that, this is the list. It has a multiple data type, right? It has a multiple data type. It can accommodate the integer or array. It can have a string or a float within the list. Whereas we call the Numpy, just one more code. So is equal to NP. And I'm going to see, when I'm doing this, it is going to error out. The reason why it is going to error out is the Numpy array can have same data type. It cannot have this kind of data type. You need to store the same data type. So that's why the Numpy arrays, if you look at that Numpy arrays, they are in the same data type, and the data type is assigned inside the Numpy array. So it is saving the space. It is not taking a space for assigning the data type. Whereas in the list, if you see the list, this is the list, right? So what it is going to store is going to store 1 as the integer and number 1, 2 as integer and number 2, and 3 is integer and number 3, and Monday as string. It is going to store a string, and this is a float. So for each and every element, it is going to store the element along with the data type. So that's why we are going to, so when we are using the array, it is going to have a same data type within the array. But you can have a different data type in a different array. But within the array, it is going to be the same data type. And the data type, the data type is assigned for the whole thing. It is not going to assign the data type element wise. That is why it is more efficient to store the NumPy array than the list. Are you getting it?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
So this is about NumPy, and these are the data types that NumPy can support. So these are multiple data types, right? For each and every array, it can have only one data type. Okay, that is the beauty of NumPy. So it can have only one data type per array. So that's why the storage is more efficient and it is storing with less space, and so the calculation will be really fast. Okay? And then we are going to talk about the array creation, and after that I'm going to get some links for you to learn, so that will be useful. So this is about today's lesson. We are going to collab. So can you so what kind of IDE are you using for your Python? Are you using Collab, or are you using Anaconda, or what kind of IDE are you using? Collab, okay. Everyone has Collab, access to Collab, and everyone have Collab open. Yeah, Visual Studio Code, yeah, you can use, yeah. As long as you are able to import NumPy, I'm okay with that. But for sharing, for homework and everything, I think Collab will be still flexible to share the homework. So we prefer to use Collab to share the homework and stuff. So anyone has any issues with Collab? Are you all able to open Collab, and can you open a new notebook? Let me know when you're done. So you all opened the new notebook, right? So let's start. So Numpy is the general purpose array processing package, and it is going to help us to handle the n-dimensional arrays. So first, what we are going to do is we are going to import the array. As any library, the first we need to start with importing the NumPy. So this is the import statement. We need to import it and NumPy. And the common notation is NP. Most people use as import NumPy as NP. But let's say if you want to call it as a different name, go for it. You can call with your own name. It doesn't matter. The reason why is like, this is kind of a nickname we are calling. Every time we don't want to type NumPy, that's why we are calling this as NP. Okay. So any questions on the import? Can you create that import statement and run it? So the first one is you are importing NumPy as NP. And the next one is, I want you to find the version of your NumPy. What version you're working on. Okay. Just for finding the version, this is the code np dot under 2 underscores version 2 underscore. And I'm going to type it in the chat. So what version do you all have?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you have the link after the importing NumPy, what's that for?
This link?
Yeah.
Oh, this link will I will send you the link. This is about NumPy. This is I'm going to share this collab with you, but this is about the NumPy. So if you click on this, it will give you the documentation regarding NumPy.
Oh, okay.
Let's do that. So when I go there, it is the documentation of NumPy, and it is going to give you all about NumPy. So it is a great reference point. So you can learn a lot of things from here, because we are going to cover Numpy only in 2 sessions. So that's why I want you to learn Numpy with this document. So you go with this document and you can read about it and get some more, get more familiarity with Numpy. Okay. Yes, the collab, we are going to use collab for the homework. Yes, exactly. And I see the version 1.215. Yes, I have this version. Maybe you may have, if you're going to use collab, you may have the same version. So,
I have a question.
Wait, so how do we download that Numpy thing?
here you're importing, right?
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's nothing more we have to do, like
No,
creating-
you're importing it. That means you're checking out from the library. So that is the import function. So first you are going to import it. So when you're importing it, when you're looking at it, see version, it is already imported and it is giving you the version and you're ready to use the Numpy function. Any questions so far? Are you able to import and get the version?
For the version, which underscore thing did you use? Because mine isn't working.
I think that in chat also.
Oh, okay.
Can
Like,
you
where
see
is
that?
that on the keyboard?
It is the, I think it is the underscore, right? So, not minus.
Oh, is
think.
it 2 underscores?
Yeah, 2 underscores. Yeah, 2
Oh,
underscores
okay,
in front
okay.
and 2 underscores after that.
Okay.
How do I get to that collab? Like the
Yeah,
one you're
Collab. Okay, so if you go to like Google Chrome and just type in collab.
Oh no, I didn't mean that. I mean like you know the file you're sharing on collab, how do I get to that?
Oh, you need like here file and a new notebook.
Okay,
So
and that's
when you
where we
create
start.
Yeah, so
That's
yes,
where, like,
exactly. Yeah, you need to start a new notebook, and when you're in the new notebook, you will see something like this, like here, file and new notebook. And if you already have any existing notebook, you can open it by this command.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so first you're starting here, right? File and new notebook. And if you want to add a code, this is the icon. Let's say if you want to add, this is the code one. So it will add a code. And if you want to type your notes, the comments that you don't want to execute, you can add it. So this is the comments page. This is, you can add the comment and this will not execute. So see, this will be outside of your code. Only the code block, whatever inside the code block will execute, and whatever that outside the code block, the text, it will not execute. So let's say if you want to see my, here I have my, this is the text block where I'm adding my comments. And this is my code block. And if you want to add, you can, and other thing with collab is you can move this one. Let me minimize these, and you can, if you want, you can move this. This with the up and down arrow, you can move this, just the code. And there are a lot of things you can do with a collab. Just explore it. That will be helpful. And let's say if you want to add code in, like in between this one, you can type like in the keyboard escape A. Escape A will add a code in front of it. And if you want to add a code block after this, escape B. So these are the shortcuts in the keyboard that will help you to add, like, work faster in collab. And if you don't want it, you can just delete this. Any question in collab?
Basically, for the homework, we have to type down on collab like what you have on the screen.
Yes, exactly. And you need to share that. You are going to share that. So you're going to get this one type. And what you're going to do is you're going to share this. Like you can share with any, like you can share with the people, or what you can do is you can share with anyone with the link. Okay, so those are the ways you can share. Probably we can walk you through after uh, this session. I can walk you through how to share in collab. So you're all set with collab, right? Are you able to import Numpy and you have the Numpy version?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we are going to, let me delete this one. This one, I don't need this example I showed. So you can create Numpy with various ways, like there are various ways to create that array. The first one is we are going to create with a zero array. So what does it is going to do is it is going to create an array of with the zeros, just with zeros. And this is, so when I run the first code, it is going to create this one. See, can you see the difference here? It has a decimal point after that. Can you see this?
Yes.
So the reason why it has a decimal point is when it is going to create, it is going to create as a float. What is a float?
It
A
has
type
one
of
decimal.
number in Python.
Decimal. It is a decimal point. So when the by default and the NP arrays are created with a decimal.
Wait,
If
one
you
second.
want
I
to
have a
say that you want it to be in a different format, let's say if you want having so what's happening? Are you able to import it? Import Numpy?
No. How do you wait? How do we do that?
Just this command, import Numpy as empty.
Oh, okay.
Just type this one. Type it and run it.
All right.
I have a clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
So, so when we import anything from NumPy, is it like automatically in float version?
It is going to import whatever the version you have it. But this one, this is just to show you what version you have.
No, I'm talking about like when you're creating an array, like when we import any number in there, does it automatically like make it a float, or do we have
Yes, when you're using this command, it is going to automatically do it as a float. That is the default setting. It's going to automatically import as a float. But if you want that to be an integer, you're going to say that. You're going to explicitly say that you want the data type of integer. So can you run these two in your machine and see what you're seeing after importing Numpy? I'm going to just copy and paste this in the chat. So are you able to run this one? And are you create? Yeah, it's good. And so you can play with that. If you want, you can say instead of 5, you want 100. You can have like multiple ways. But if you look at that, what kind of array it created?
A float.
Correct?
You did a float array.
Yeah, instead of 5, yeah, you can make it 5, but you'll be using as we'll be doing in the tiles. When we are using in the tiles, we'll go there. First, now you're going to create the arrays with 0 for now, because the 0 function is going to create arrays with the 0. If you see, this is the function np.0. So that is so did you all get the code? Are you able to see the code? I just typed it in this chat.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. So this array, we are going to just create with 0. And here the second one, we are telling explicitly saying that the data type is going to be. Okay, this is how we are going to create array with. And if you look at that, it is just the one dimension. Can you see it has just one row. We just created a one dimension array. Next one, we are going to do the same thing with ones. Instead of 0, you're going to use ones function and you're going to create an array. So same thing here, when you're creating the array, just with this ones, it is going to start with, it is going to create an array with a float. So I'm going to, you want to try it by yourself? You can, this is the name. See, this is the name we are giving to the array. You can call it anything, but it needs to start with the number and it can have only underscore, alphanumeric and alphanumeric character, no special character. Okay. The naming convention follows the same thing in Python here. Okay.
So the first one, if you just have like np.1s and 10, it'll put 10 of them, but they're separate elements. And then for the second one, it'll make it all one integer or all one like thing that you enter.
Yes, so the first one, what it is giving me 10 elements. And see, if you look at that, each element are a float. Okay. And the next, it is giving me a 5 element and each element is integer. I can say instead of 5, I can say 10. You can see the difference here.
Oh, okay.
See, what it is doing is, it is doing it, the first one, since the data type is not explicit, it is going to give you as a float. In the second line, what we did is the data type we are assigning to integer. So it is going to give integers. This is the list of, it is the array with integers. So you can create with NP zeros, NP ones, and NP childs. I think someone asked, can we create a array with just 5? So we have this num list, right? So let me do one more num list. Num list 5 is equal to NP dot child. That is the function we are going to use here. Child. We want like how many elements? I want 25 elements and I need that with number 5. So, and I'm going to print it. So what's happening here? See? Oh, I think we have switched it. So it is printing 25 and 5 times. Let's say I want 5, 25 times. So now if you look at that, it is going to print 5, 25 times. So the tile is the function that may be used to create the same number, like 0 will create with 0, 1 will create with 1, whereas the tiles will create with the number we are providing. So if you look at this, this is the tuple. See, can you see this is the tuple? Tuple is within the parenthesis, right? So we use the tuples a lot here for giving the dimensions and the parameters. We use tuples. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, so, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we said Numpy dot like NP dot ones or like zeros or before this, how many numbers does that function go until?
This one, zeros.
Yeah, like the zeros and the ones. Is there like a twos or something?
So you can do like, see, what it is doing is it can create these many numbers. But if you see, it cannot print everything, so it is adding an ellipse. That means there is a number in front and a number in the back.
Oh, I didn't mean that. Like the NP dot like zeros itself. Like, is there a NP dot twos, threes, or something?
No, I think we have 0, 1. So if you want to see, let's say, okay, if you want to try that, okay. So I'm going to say num3 no, num3 2 NP dot. When you type in, it is going to give you everything. What are the options available? So let's say you want to type 2. I don't think you have 2 here. See, all the options available are here. So we don't have a 2 here. We have only ones and 0. And for other numbers, you can use the style function. See, the style function is used to create any array. So if you want an array with 10,000, like this number, like 100,000, let's print it. And it is going to give the array with this 100,000.
So it'll print the first number, it'll print that actual number, and the second one will be how many
Yes,
times?
exactly. Yeah, it is going to give you 9 times of the first number.
And what if you want, like how you did in the other ones where you did like 1 underscore 2 equals NP dot ones, 5 comma D type equals int? Like, how do you combine all of them if you want to do the tile function too?
Okay, let's check that one. Dot tile. So it is after tile. If you look at the tile, it is going to give you what are the options here. See, if you see, it is going to give you what are the options available in N-tile and what are the options available here. So this is the way you are going to check. So the parameters, right? The NP child. So what it is doing is it is going to give you an array of like starts here. So a comma 2. So we are saying a is equal to this one, and we want NP child to be a comma 2. That means we are recreating this array. We are duplicating this array. So that is the way. That is one way to use child. And then what we are doing is we are saying that a comma 2 comma 2. So I need a dimension. Like I need 2 rows with 2 columns. So this is the way you're going to explore more. See, when you click on this one, it will give you the options. What are the options available? So right now we are just going to start with the basic stuff, and you can learn more just by going here, like in the Numpy, how we are going, like what are the options available, as well as if you want, you can also use this help function available. Any question?
No.
So we are going to explore this. I just did a type 2. So
Sorry, just one last question. How do
yeah,
we,
go ahead.
once we're done with the homework on collab, how do we submit this to the website?
I think we can talk about it after the class, like maybe because whoever they were already in the class, they know how to do it. If you can stay a little longer, I can go over with how you're going to submit it. For the interest
Okay.
of the time, we can do that. Okay. So are you good with the tiles? We talked about zeros, ones, and tile. And the other way to create an array is using the arange function. Remember, in the list, we use the range function, right? It is similar to that. And here, what you're going to say is you're going to tell to create an array with 6 elements. So as you always like, it will always start with 0. So if you see, it starts with 0 and ends with 5 because it is having a 6 elements. Let's say you want a 10 element, you can just run it and it will start with 0 and end with 9. So this is
quick-
another.
I have a question.
Yes.
In order to do this, can you just create a while loop?
A while loop is going to be a it is not a direct method, right? It is while loop. You need to have how many lines of code?
Oh, yeah, you need like 3 or 4.
Yeah, but this one, see how many lines you have.
Oh, okay.
So this NP, that's the beauty of this Numpy. You can create an array with just one line of code. You don't need multiple lines of code. So right now
quick-
we are, you go.
Quick question. So for like the third what is it, third row, like you just put C. Why didn't you put like print C for that?
Yeah, you can do that too. So if you want just C, like if you want to print it, you can do that. Or if you want that, this is the another way to work on it. So it is the same thing. But let's say if you're going to have a multiple for like a, let's say you are printing C, right? You can do that. Instead of that, you can just type C. It will provide you the same answer here. And what it is going to do is it is going to tell it is an array. It is going to tell it is an array, and it is going to give the array here. So if you're going to do print, see, you can see the difference between both. I will do that. So I'm going to print C and C. Okay. If I'm going to run it, you see the difference, right? The print function is just printing the array, whereas if I'm going to just call, it is going to say it is an array and it is going to give me this value.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, but if you do vice versa, let's say I'm going to do that. So instead of here print, let's see, I'm going to do this. This code will not be executed here. This will not be executed. It will just go to print. So if I'm having C here, this will not be executed. Whereas if I have the C at the end, it will be executed. Now you see both print C and C. Whereas if I have the print at the end, or if you have any code after this, this line of code will not be executed. Can you see the difference between both? How we are getting the output? Any questions on the arrange function?
No.
So the
I actually
arrange,
have a question on the arrange function.
okay, go ahead.
So is there a way to put in the value that you want first instead of it always being 0?
Yes, and we will be using the. I don't think so with the arrange. I can check, but I'm not sure whether we can do that. We can check.
Okay.
So let's say we are using the arrange, right? Arrange is going to start with 0 and it is going to end with this one. And there is another function, it's called a linspace. Linspace, what it is going to do is you can dictate the starting value and the end value and how many elements you want. Maybe this will answer your question, right? Instead of like you want to start, instead of 0, you want to start with a number, you can do like this. You can like linspace, you can use this one. You can create one more array. So if you're typing, it is giving you the start, stop, and what is the endpoint. See that my starting point is going to be 1, and my ending point is going to be 10, and I want how many? It is going to 9 values. Let's see. See, it is going to give the 9 values here. So let's say if I want 10 values, it is going to give me 10 values. So the linspace will, you can use the linspace to start to control your starting point, end point, and number of elements.
For the tuple, how does it figure out like what elements to put in between, or is it just evenly spaced?
It is starting with, so the tuple is telling you what is the start value, what is the end value, and how many elements you want. So it is going to be evenly spaced. So let's say I want only 9 values. So what it is going to do is it is going to give me an evenly spaced. So it is going to give me only 9 values starting from 1 to 10.
Okay.
So that is the beauty of linspace. So you can control the starting point, end point, and how many elements you want. Whereas the arrange function, you will be giving the range, what range you want, and it is going to create an array based on the arrange value. The linspace, the coders, the programmers have more control of that, like how you're going to create your array, what is the starting point, what is the end point, and what, like how many elements you want. Any questions on this one? Do you see the difference between the arrange and the linspace? So far, we were dealing with just the one dimension array. So we're talking about these array, right? We're talking about arrays. We were like talking about just the one dimension array. Right now, we are going to talk about the n dimension or the multi-dimension. Okay? So are you good? Can we move to the next session after the multi-dimension array?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can create a 2-dimension array or 3-dimension array using the reshape function. So the reshape is what it is. NPI, we are not there yet. Wait, we are just starting with this one. We'll go to NPI later. Okay. So we are talking about the reshaping, and the reshaping is, it is going to give you the number of rows and number of columns here. So what is the dimension we are going to have? So what I'm saying is, I want an NP array, like I want an array of array D, and I want it like having numbers from 0 to 11. That's what I want. So it says 12, right? So I'm asking 12 elements in the array, and I want that to be shaped by 4 3. That means 4 rows and 3 columns. So let's print this one. B, and I'm going to put. So let's run this one. So if you look at that, it is the multi-dimensional array. So it created the first array, it created, let me just start with one. So what it did is, it created an array and it reshaped to 4 by 3. That means 4 rows and 3 columns. You can change it. Like if you want 3 by 4, you need to just tell it here. So then it will create the array like this. So this is the NB array, or the multi-dimensional array that we are working on. So let's say you have an array, the same thing, np.arrange 12. So I want to print So you can see the difference between both. See, if you look at that, you are providing the shape. You are providing the shape, so just creating the array in that shape. If no reshape is provided, it is just going to be vector. It is going to give one dimension. Any questions on this one? How we are
So-
reshaping? Yes.
So wait, so what does the reshape mean again?
Reshape is going to give you what it is going to tell the dimension of the array. So the array can, like, dimension is nothing but number of rows and number of columns. So first is the number of rows. So what I'm saying is rearrange this array with 3 rows and 4 columns. That is the reshape. That is the reshape function.
Okay, then the arrange function is like,
Arrange function is just giving you a range. It is creating an array. Arrange is a function to create an array. Reshape is a function to reshape the array.
okay, thank you.
Any questions on this one? Can you create an array with can you so one thing you need to see is here, see, you have the 15 elements, right? Let's say I want to create the same kind of row and column. It may not work because it will throw an error because we have 15 elements and we are asking for only 12 elements here. I'm going to run it and see. Print G, right? See, this will error out because I changed the shape. Let's see. It is going to error out because it is not able to reshape the size 15 into 3 by 4. Because 3 by 4 is 3 times 4 is 12, right? You have number of rows and number of columns. When you multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, you will get the elements. So you have 15 elements, and 15 elements you cannot reshape in like this array. So it is going to give me an error. So you need to be really careful when you are using this arrange function and reshape. Make sure elements, number of elements is matching with your the reshape tuple you are giving. So you need to always use a caution here. Any questions with the arrange and reshape? Are you able to follow the code, or you want me to paste the code in the chat?
Can you paste the code in the chat, please?
This one? Yeah, let's do. Okay. So I pasted in chat. So we have 2 functions here, right? Arrange and reshape. So arrange is going to create an array, whereas the reshape is going to reshape the array that was created. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay, shall we move to the next one? Or you want me to slow down or explain anything, any other topics we covered so far?
We can move on.
Okay. So next one is we are going to use an I function. Okay. So I function, what the I function is going to do is it is going to create an array, the dimensional array. Dimensional array is nothing but it is like you will have value. It is the 0 array and it has 1 in the dimension. So the dimension is this one, right? You might have played the word game or any when you're working on the word game, you will be using up, down, dimension, right? You know what do you mean by dimension, right? So the dimensional array, the I is going to create a dimensional array, and the dimensional array, the dimension is going to create on the dimension. But you can, if you want, what you can do is you can specify the value of k. So the value of k is now it is going to 0. That means it is going to start with the top, the first, the top value, the first row and first column. So k is going to be 0. If you are saying k is equal to 1, let's do this. So what it is going to do is it is going to skip this dimension, and it's going to populate the values in the the first row and the second column. It is going to start from here. And if you can play with that, you can move this one. Let's say I want it to be, it's going to do it here. See, it skipped 3 places. So default value for k is 0. But if you want to change, you can change and you can create a dimensional array. This dimensional array will be little useful when you are working on any, like in the analysis part, you may use this one. Any questions on the this I function?
So what does the I do again?
So I is going to create an array in the dimension, like it is going to give you the dimensional matrix. So dimensional matrix is nothing but this one. See, this is the dimensional matrix. It has, I say 6 because it is going to create a 6 rows and 6 columns. Let's do a different way. See, I'm going to create 2 row and 2 columns. This may be real. See, it created a 2 row and 2 column, and in the diagonal, it created with 1. The remaining will be 0. See, you can see the difference here. I'm going to play with the numbers. See, can you see the difference? In the diagonal only, it is creating the values, the elements 1, whereas for the others, it is creating with 0. Let's try. Let's see whether it is going to work. I don't think, let us taking it, let's see. Okay, now I created a dimensional array with the data type of int. So what it does is it created an array with 3 rows and 3 columns, and in the dimensions, in the dimension, it is going to it is going to use element as 1. It is going to create with the element 1. If I want 4, I'm going to change it and show you. See. So this is one type of array, the dimensional array. You can create the dimensional array with this function, npi. Any questions on this one? Or you want to practice more this dimensional array?
So the 4 would be the amount of rows.
Yeah, number of rows and number of columns. This is the 4. If I'm going to say 10, it is going to create with 10 rows and 10 columns, and my value in the diagonal is going to be 1. So that is the function of I. And if I'm not saying the data type int, it is going to create with the float. You can see it is creating with the float. If I'm saying my data type is going to be int, it is going to create with int.
What does it mean by k equals 3 or 2?
K is the diagonal. So actually the k value is going to be k is, so if the default value for k is 0, that means it is going to start from here. Let's say if you want your ones to be here, let's say you want your ones to be here, all this diagonal, then you need to use k is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you use k is equal to 4, it is going to change the one position. See, the one is going to show it here. So it is the case detecting where you want the diagonal to show. The default is always going to be 0.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for creating an array? We have 3 more. We'll finish creating the array, then we can go for a break. Okay? So so far we saw about like we saw zeros, ones, child, and arrange linspace, and reshaping the array, and talked about the I function. Now we can just create an array just like that. You can just pass a value here. It is a 0-dimension array. That means you're just passing a value. You're creating an array. Say you're calling the array as A3, and you're calling the NP function. You're calling the Numpy, and your array is going to be 42. That means you're creating an array just the number 42. It can be any number. So let's say I'm going to create an array with 100. So it is going to create this with 100. So this is the scalar. Let's say you want the array. Just if you're going to just print the array, you can just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Array is equal to NP array. So this one, if you look at the difference here, you are just using the tuple, right? So if you want a multiple number, you need to use this one. You need to have all these within the list. Okay? Or you can use tuples also. You can use the tuple, and you can pass a tuple within the array to create the array. So you can have the array, you can pass the array using the array function. You can create a tuple or list. So you can create an array in multiple ways. Okay? And you can reshape it using the reshape function. So this is about creation of array. Any questions regarding this? Okay, then we can go for a break for about 5 minutes. Can we meet about in 11:10 EST? Or you want more time?
11:10 is fine.
Okay. Okay, then we will we'll meet at 11:10 then. Go back. Shall we start? Start and let's talk about.
I actually have a question about the np.array.
Okay.
So when we did the array and just put 100 in it, like if you scroll up a little bit.
Just this one?
Yeah, just that one. So
Oh,
the difference between that one and the one below it is that one's a 0-dimensional one, and then the one below it is 1-dimensional.
Yes, this is a 0-dimensional because we don't have it has just one element, right? So this is a 0-dimensional, and this is a 1-dimensional because it has.
Okay.
And if you want a multi-dimensional, you can create a multi-dimensional also here. Let's say you can pass one more list here. So I'm going to pass this one more list. And this needs to be within a list. So I want this one here. So this is a multi-dimensional array. So if you look at that, it will create 2 rows because we are passing the second list also, first list and second list. So it is going to create a 2-dimensional array. It has 2 rows and these many columns, 5 columns and 2 rows. So you can create an array with multiple dimensions here itself. just with scalar or you can use one dimension or two or n dimension.
Okay.
Okay, so this is all about creating the arrays. And then we are going to talk about the array attributes. So what do you mean by attributes? What does that mean to you? So we are going to talk about the properties of an array, that is the attributes. Okay? So we are going to talk about the properties here. So if you see this one, it says like 1, 2, 3, right? So what kind of data type it will be? See what kind of data type this array. Is it an integer or a float or a string? It's a string. Okay. String is a group alphanumeric character, right? It is just number 1, number 2, and number 3 here. So the data type here is an integer. So if you want to know what is the data type function will tell you what it is. See, here this data type for this one is integer. See, A is this array, and the data type for this one is integer. And the shape it is going to be one dimension, and it has how many columns? It has 3 columns. So it is going to see 3 here. So when I run it, it is going to give you the data type and the shape. So let's do different example here. So I have this array. If you look at that, this array, I have an integer, whereas this array, I have a float. It has a decimal point. With a decimal point, it is a float. And this is the string. It has the alpha character, alpha. So this is the string. So if I'm going to run the data type for this, you can see all the data type here and what we are going to talk about. See, it is going to say the item size for B is going to be 8. The item size is the bit. So you need to know the float. The float divided by 8 is going to be your item size. And D type is the data type. So here we are saying data type is going to be float for this one, whereas for this one it is the string or undefined. Okay? And then you can have that these are the attributes, the item size, the size is nothing but how many elements you have in the list. So for this array, so how many elements are there? This array, you have 3 elements. So when I'm asking to print the size, it is going to say 3. That means it is going to count the elements. If I'm going to see here, if I want the size of this one, let's say I'm going to have more numbers. 6. So let's say I want the size of this element. What will be the size of this one? This array. Any guesses? The size is the count of the elements. So how many elements are here? 5.
Will there be 5?
Yeah, that's right. So let's say I'm going to print a dot size. It is going to give me like what is the size of it, like 5. If I'm going to add one more value, let's say I'm going to add 4 to it. So let's see here. Now the size is going to be 6. So These are the attributes of an array. The data type, shape, size, dimension, everything is the attribute. So let's do the dimension of this one.
Can you explain what the difference between item size and size is again?
Oh, item size is looking at the data type and divide by 8. So it is telling what is the, like, how much space it is going to occupy. That is the item size. So what I'm saying is, so it is a float. See, this is the float, and it is the float is 64. It is going to occupy 8. The size is going to be 8. For each element, the memory space is going to be 8. That is the item size. Whereas the size is the number of elements. Size you can just see physically, whereas the item size is the memory size that it is going to use for this particular element. So if you want to see the item size for this one, F item size, see, it is going to take 12. So for storing the value January, it is going to take the size, like the space of 12. Whereas for storing the value of 1.2, it is going to take 8 space, like 8. That is the memory size. Whereas the size here is the number of elements. So that is the difference between the item size and size. The item size is based on the data type, what data type you are going to use. Let's see, this is the integer, right? Let's see what is the item size of this. So let's see here. So see, for this integer, it is going to take 8 spaces. Whereas for this float, it is going to take 8 spaces. For this string, it is going to take 12 spaces, 12 bits. Are you clear? What is the difference between item size and size?
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions on this one?
What is wait? So what does item size mean again?
Item size is the like a space it is going to take for each element. It is going to take 8 bytes to store this each element. Whereas if you look at this one, January, it is string, so it is going to take more memory space. It is going to take 12 units of the space. Whereas for the integer and float, it is going to take 8 spaces. So item size is based on the data type. So your data type determine what is the item size for each element in the array. So it is what it is telling you is for storing these many. So we have how many elements? We have 6 elements, and each element is going to take 8 spaces. So for 6 elements, it is going to be 6 times 8. So that is the memory space.
Okay. Also, is there like any websites I could go to learn the basics of Python? Because I didn't attend last semester.
Okay, so if you're not here, the one thing I can recommend is Kaggle. So when you go to kaggle.com, you can learn Python here. So if you go to Kaggle, I highly recommend you to register for this Kaggle website. And here, if you go to courses, and you can have the course here. See Python, you can just talk, like you can take the course. This is one thing. And the other basic, if you want to really learn the basic, you can go for the W3 schools. Have you heard about the W3 schools? So W3 has all the tutorials for any kind of language. So Python, you can learn from here. So you have this. So there are various spaces that you can learn Python. And first you need to have what, like you need to know what, like how to comment, what are the variables, what are list data types. That will help to understand what we are talking now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So any questions on the dimension, the attribute? So we talked about the item size, data type, and shape. Now we are going to talk about the dimension. So we were talking about the dimension, right? So let's say, see, this is one array. If you look at that, this is just a 0 dimension because it has only one element. So the dimension of this is 0. And if you're going to do this, like we have an array of one row, the dimension is going to be 1 because there is only one row. Here we have like dimension, like you can see um, uh, 2 rows and 3 columns, so dimension is 3. So let me print all these, then you can see everything together and see the dimension also.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the one before this, when we assign the values to the B array, and it was like 1.2, 3.4, and then 5. When it printed out as like a 5.0. Does that mean that it like converts into a tuple and not tuple, sorry, into a float, and then it does that, or what happens there?
Yeah, that's exactly. So what's your question? So you're talking about which one?
Yeah, that one. In the B array, it's just like 5 as an integer. Does that convert into a float
Yes,
after that?
you got it right. You got it right. That's a good point. So whenever you have a multiple, whenever you have a multiple data types into it, the NP array, it upscales it. So for example, we have like a float and integer. So what it does is it is going to store the 5 also as an integer. So let's just print this B to see this one. Then you can see the difference. So if you look at this, see, it is printing 5, it is taking 5 also as a. So it upscales it. The reason why it upscales it, it don't like an array wants to have a homogeneous shape or like a data type. It doesn't like with the homogeneous, that means a same data type. If it in list, you can have this one as a float, and integer, but with array, all the elements in the data in the array is going to have the same data type. So what does it do? Even though it is an integer, array is upscaling it. It is making it as a float.
So if you had an array of mostly integers and then one float, would it still convert everything to float?
Yeah, it will still. Let's do this here because that is the upscale. So 3.4. So let's do this one. So if you look at that, it is different now. See, it is all different because there is one flow. It is upscaling. It is changing everything to float. If you don't have, like, if you have just the integer, it is a different. So let's, if you have just the integers, I'm going to take it out. And now the data type is going to be integer and it is going to print like an integer and the item size is going to be 8. Whereas if I'm going to say I want 3.14, so then it is going to change everything to float and the whole thing is going to save as float. That is what we talk about here, right? When we are talking about arrays, we are saying it is going to be each element same time. Each element of array exists and has the same type. It is a homogeneous. The data type is going to be homogeneous.
Okay, thank you.
Correct? Good question. Okay, so any questions on this the item type and this one? We are here in the dimension, right? Let's start with the dimension. I think yeah, 11:30. Okay, let's see. Let's finish your dimension before moving on. So the other,
Would you be able to post the dimension code in the chat?
yeah, I will do that.
Okay.
So I ping to everyone. Just copy and paste it. You can feel free to change your array and see how it changes. So if you look at that, so let's start with just this one. So I'm going to comment everything. We are going to talk one at a time, so we're not confusing with each other. So you all have the code, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with one and we'll go. So dimension is nothing but it is going to give you how many rows and columns. So we are going to start with the first one, A. So if you look at that, A is this one, A NP array. If you want, we can put it in the list. We can do that too. Right. So this is, it is going to be, so if you're, you can see the difference here. If it is just the scalar, if it is just the tuple, it is having a 0 dimension, right? It is having a 0 dimension because it is just the tuple. But if you're making it as an array, like if you're making it as a list, it is showing the dimension is going to change. The dimension is going to tell it is going to have one row and one column, so it is going to be one. You can see the difference. Can you see the difference here? If it is just a scalar, if I'm going to just with a scalar, it is going to be 0. Okay? If I'm going to make this as a list or an array, it is going to show me as 1. Okay? So that is the dimension. So this is the one dimension. So if I'm going to have the scalar alone, it is going to be a 0 dimension. Okay? This is a 0 dimension. You can see it here, right? This one. We are talking about this one, the scalar. So the scalars will have a 0 dimension. And then we have the vectors. Vectors is the 1 dimension. So let's start with B. I'm going to comment. Are you clear with the A? The dimension and the how it is showing. You see this one, the dimension is 0. Are you clear with A? Let's move to B. Here, just the dimension for B. So we are going to see one at a time. Okay. So if I'm going to type just B, it is going to be 1 dimension because it has only 1 row, no columns. So it is 1 dimension. And let's do C. C is having 2 rows. C is having 2 rows and 3 columns. So it is having a 2 dimension. It is a 2 dimension. Then let's go for B. So we are going to look at array D. So So if you look at that array D, see, it has one, see, it has like, there is one list within the list. So it is having 3 dimension. Just like it is a 3-dimensional array. This is what we will call it as tensor here. So when you go here, this is the tensor. So we will be using this in the analysis later. But for now, you see this is the scalar, this is the vector, matrix, and this is the tensor. And let's see what the E looks like. So E, if you look at it, it's a 2-dimension because it has 3 rows and 1 column. So it is a 2-dimension. So this is talking about the dimension. This ndim is the function that gives you the dimension of the array. So when you the ndim you can use to get the attribute, the dimension attribute of an array. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead.
what do we call them again? So it's scalar and
A
then
scalar, vector, matrix, and tensor. See, scalar, vector, matrix, and tensor.
okay.
So when we are having complex analysis, we will be using this tensor. Like when we are working on your image analysis or when we are any complex thing, we will be using this. So these are the basic types of array we have, and all the arrays are supported in Numpy. You can have a scalar, vector, matrix, or a tensor. Okay? And the ndim is the function that is used to calculate the dimension of an array. Any questions? So what we learned so far is we learned about how we are creating an array, right? We created an array with multiple functions, Python Numpy functions. Then we talked about the attributes. The attributes we talked about are the data type, the shape, size, item size, and dimension. We have multiple attributes, but we just talked about this. Any questions on this one before we move to the next topic?
For E, why is the dimension 2?
Because it has it has 3 rows. Whereas if you look at that, this one has only 1 row, right? Here it has 3 rows and 1 column. So the dimension is 2.
Is the dimension like the rows minus 1?
It's not like that, like how we are looking at the data. So let's say you're just looking at one number. Let's say I'm going to just look at this number. It is going to be 0 dimension, right? And if I'm going to add like 1, 2, 3 here, it is going to be 1 dimension because it has only 1 row. Okay, and if I'm going to talk about 1, 2, 3, we are going to talk about like this is going to be 2 because it has a dimension of like rows and columns. So this is basically a vector. That's why your dimension is 1. See the dimension, if you look at that, the vector, so dimension is 1. Read more about matrices. I think that will help us to understand this more. I will send you the link for the matrices because that understanding will be really helpful to get all the dimension values here.
Okay.
And then the statistics function, we can do the same, like whatever we did, like min, max, sum, and standard deviation here. If you have a range of, like if you have a list of numbers, you can calculate the minimum, maximum, and these are the function. Mode, I think you need to have a different library. So the library, NP library is supporting all this. You don't have the mode here. So you're just going to like type min, max, and sum. It is going to give you that all the uh, values of the status. These are the statistical functions. And the reshaping, I think we already talked about it, right? We already talked about reshaping, how we can reshape it by using the reshape function. And basically, you're going to give a couple of number of rows and number of columns. This reshape function to reshape of array. Then we can talk about, do you
Could
have
you
any
post
questions on
the,
that?
oh, sorry. Could you post the statistical function code, please?
Yeah, sure. So I posted it. And if you want, let's say if you want to know what are the other options available, I highly recommend to use this tab key. So B dot. So if you look at that, it is giving you all the options available. You can have like you can flatten item size, max, min, and yeah, we have a lot of functions, but we are not going to ever just a few now. You will be like we may use certain functions, we may not use certain, but these are the available functions for you to see with the numpy, because this B is a numpy array. So with the numpy array, these are the functions available. Okay. And when you click on that, it will tell you like the syntax also. What kind of syntax do you want? It is going to tell. So any questions on this one? We will be going in detail with the statistical function because it is just one dimension array here. The next class we will go detail in the statistical function. And this is about how you're going to print in array. So let's say, I think I'm going to use the same Excel. So assume that this is the array, right? So how many rows and how many columns does it have?
There's 2 rows,
Yeah, 2 rows. And how many columns?
2 columns. Oh wait, sorry, 5 columns.
5 columns. So the dimension will be 2, 5, right? You have 2 rows and 5 columns. Let's say you want to print this one. If you want to print this first one, so what will be the argument you're going to give? You want this first element to be printed. Remember, it always starts with 0. So if you want to just print this first element, okay, good. So here, if you want to just print the first element, this is the way you want the 0, 0. That means you want the 0th position. So this is going to be your 0 element. So 0, 0 is being this one. Let's say you want this one. It is going to tell you want the first first 1, 0. So you want that 0th row, but the first column. So this is the key. Like the 0 is the starting point of anything. So let's go back to the code. So let's say if you want to print just this one, it is going to be 0, 0. Okay? And if you want to know what is your element in your, like this is going to be your this is going to be your number 1 for columns, and this is going to be number 1. See this one. So if you want to just 6, it is going to be 1, 1. So just keep in mind 0 is always the starting point. So here, let's go back here. So this will be 0, 1, 2. So it will go on like this, right? And here it will go same way. 0. This is the 0th position, and this is the first position. So this is how the index will work. If you want this number, you're going to tell you want 0, 0. Okay? And if you want this, it is going to be 1, 0. So on. So you're going to find the values based on this position, the indexing position. The index will always start with 0 for the list. So this is how you're going to access any list here. Okay. So
could you explain the 1, 1 thing again?
Okay, let's do one at a time. Give me a moment. Let's do this. I think you're good with the shape, right? And size. Okay, let's start from here. So when you're saying you want that first element, like this is the first thing is printing the array, second is printing the array 2, 4, and this is giving the size. And here you want just the 1. That means your first, this is the 1. See, that is the first position. See, let's go back here. So if you want just the first position, so you're going to say just this one. Okay. And if you want, that is the 1. Okay. And if you want the this number, it is going to be the first row and first column. It is going to be this one. If you want, it is going to give you just this. Next, you can see 0, 0 is this one. And if you're just reading 1, it is going to give you all the values here. Okay. So this is the first one. So next, if you want a 1, 1, so what it is going to give you is, it is going to give you the first element, see, on the first row. So 1, 1. Right. Here I'm missing something. 1, 1. This one is, let's do it. And see if that works. So this is going to give you the first row and the first element. And if I'm going to see 1, it is going to give me 6. Oh, that's the reason. See, my Excel is not working because of this. See, I have only 4 elements in my list. So this starts with 5. 5, 6, So now I'm matching here, right? This is the shape I have. This is the array I have. So I'm just adding it here. Now it makes. So if you look at this, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the first row. 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you want 1, 1, it is going to give you this value because that is the corresponding value. Can you see this one?
Yeah.
So the index always start with 0 and it goes on. So this is the index that we are going to use to find out the values, corresponding values in that array. So when you want a specific element, let's say if you want a 7, what will be the index you will be using?
1, 2.
1, 2, yes. So this is how the indexing works. So when you are printing your elements, you can call the index and that will give you the corresponding value. Let's say if you want just 1, that means it is going to give you the first row, the whole thing, because it doesn't specify which element you want across the columns. So that's why it is going to just give you the row. So are you good with this one? 1, 1, 1 and 1, the indexing?
Yeah, so like the 1, 1 and 1 and 1 are just the same thing, written differently.
What is it? Can you repeat your
So
question?
the 1, 1 and the 1 and the 1 just in brackets, are they the same thing?
I don't think so. It may be, let's try. See how it is. No, it was erroring out. Talking about comma.
Yeah, if you just put 1, 1 in just one bracket,
Oh,
is
1,
that the same?
1. 1, 1 is different from 1, 1. So without comma, let's do this one. So without the comma, it is going to give you one element. It is going to give you one element. With comma, what it is going to do is, it is going to give you this row and it is going to give you the first element. So it is going to give you the first element. So it is different. If you add a comma, it is different. It is giving you a different result. Can you see the difference?
Like if you add a comma inside of the bracket and put in 1?
Yeah.
Like, will that be the same as just saying bracket 1 and another bracket 1?
So no, it's the same thing. 1 comma and here. If you are adding a comma here, it is the same. Let's do that, right? The comma is going to change. Yeah, it is the same thing. If you're adding a comma inside, the outside is the key. If you're adding outside, is going to be the whole element of the row as well as the first one. So 1, 1. Yeah, let's try that. Oh, it is the same thing we already did, right? 1, 1, this one. So yeah, it is the same thing. 1, 1 is same thing like this one.
Okay.
So these
also,
two,
could you post the code in the chat,
yeah,
please?
I'm going to post the code with the presentation and you can access from there.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to post the code. So this is about how we are going to print something within the array. And if you want to transpose, that means you are changing the rows into column and columns into row. You can do that. See, it's going to transpose. See, this is the original array. And with the transpose function, it transposed. So number of rows become number of columns. And so it is just transposing it. And if you want to print the diagonal, we can use this one. I think we can go over in detail next class, the diagonal and transposing. I'm just going to show you right now the diagonal and transposing. And Yeah, I think we'll stop here for any questions. So can anyone summarize what we have learned so far? So what is Numpy? Can you speak up? ND arrays? Yes, that's good. Coding arrays? Good. Next. What is Numpy? What is the abbreviation for Numpy?
NP.
NP is the alias that we are calling. Abbreviation is like what we are saying is the expansion for Numpy is numerical Python. And why are we learning Numpy?
We're learning NumPy because NumPy is the basis for data calculation and the foundation for most mathematical data calculations.
Yeah, you're right. So you're capturing it right. So and it's a great way to put together. So Numpy is the basis for a lot of other libraries, and it is making the calculations really fast. That's why we are learning Numpy. So I think for the homework, I'm planning to give you like creating Numpy, and I'm still working on the homework. It will be the homework will be based on what we taught, and I will be assigning you to read about matrices and Numpy and talk about explore more on Numpy. So that will be the homework. I will be posting it soon. And Nadhiya, can you summarize what you have, like your feedback regarding the last week homework?
Sure. Hey, hi, all. So based on the last week's homework evaluation, right? So I have not updated the scores yet on the portal. So you will see the scores in a couple of days. But so far, I've seen many of you have completed the homework correctly. So good, kudos to that. But for some of you, you have gotten the third question as wrong because of the second equation. So I think once we publish the homework key, just go ahead and look what you guys missed, but you guys tried it, so that's a good thing. About the homework submission, so some of you are submitting homework as a link to Google Drive or to Google Sheets. So the problem is like you guys are not giving us access. So when I click on that link, I'm not able to see the code or anything because the access is not granted properly. So either grant us the access to our email or to the support group, or the best bet would be to just copy paste in a Word document and convert it as PDF and then submit it, okay, like how we did for previous classes, so that you guys get a score. That's one call out. And some of you have posted a picture, like a phone pic of it, which is okay, but I think on the longer run that solution would not work. So for this week I went ahead and gave you marks. But like I said, just copy paste in a Word document and then try to convert it to PDF and then submit it. Okay. And one more feedback is when you are submitting, please choose the correct session number. Okay. So if you are submitting homework for session 2, please make sure you are choosing the session 2, because if you're going to use a wrong session number, we will not be able to pull your homework and you may not get your mark. Also, please submit your homeworks on time by the cutoff date. I've seen a couple of you who have submitted after the cutoff date, and you might miss getting your marks on that too. So these are the feedbacks, but all in all, you guys have done a great job. And for last week's homework, so Prince, Pranil, and Kavin, you have done a very good job. Not only you have got the answers correct, but I like the way how you have explained it, why you are arriving at it, right? Like what the solution, reasoning behind that solution is. which is very good. And I'm going to paste rest of the names who did a very good job on your homeworks. Okay, I've just pasted it on the chat. So it's Arshi, Darren, Elric, Likita, Kavin, Nick, Tanvi, Vansh, Varsha, and Akshita. So you guys have also done a great job. Keep it up. Okay, and that's it from my side. Have a great weekend, guys. Over to you.
Yeah, if you have any questions on submitting the collab, you can stay and others can drop, and we can meet in 2 weeks. Thank you all.
Can you like show me how to submit the homework?
Yes, I will do that. 1 minute.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. If you have any questions, you can email info@agoramatrico.org or comment below and we'll reply back. Maybe. And if you want to see practice things or anything about us, you can visit our website, which is basically the end of the email, but without the info and the end. So bye!